Welcome back to my channel, fellow homebodies. My name's Amy. We made it to another weekend. It is very beautiful outside, but not that warm. It's maybe 50, but the wind makes it feel a lot colder. But you can see that we have lost a lot of the snow we got over the past couple storms. The pond is thawing. It's mostly thawed, actually. And this is early spring in the Catskills. But the sky is a brilliant blue today. And it's a lovely day. But as you can see, I'm wearing a sweatshirt and a turtleneck because I had to go out to the store today. So I decided to wear warm clothes because I didn't want to be cold. But the way I'm dressed, I actually was very comfortable. I had a coat on also. All right, what are we going to do today on this end of March weekend? Well, I thought today I would make a recipe that I've made many times before that is delicious, and it's something I haven't made on this channel before, and it is homemade scones. So let me tell you my little story about homemade scones. All right, I came in the living room, and immediately I have my boys. Here they are. This is my boys. They just took a nap while Mommy was at the store. And now here they are. Here they are. This is what I have to deal with in my life. Two monsters. A beagle monster and a pug monster that I love very much. They're kissing each other. Hello. Sit here. Never a dull moment with these two pups. Thank God I have these two pups. Puppies make your empty nest feel full again. And we have two pups, one for Joe and one for me. The beagle is Joe's pup and the pug is mine. All right, so why do I make scones? Well, it kind of goes back to my mom's 70th birthday. So my mom turned 70 we were planning her 70th birthday party, I would say maybe 6 years ago. And my mother's always loved tea, so I wanted to do a tea party theme for her 70th birthday. And we held it at my brother's house, and we all planned to bring different things. And I decided to prep for this party. I was going to learn how to make homemade scones, which I've never made before. And I also bought all kinds of unique teas to make. I also made cupcakes. I bought these silicone teacups with saucers, and you actually bake the cupcake in the teacup, and I made those. Those were adorable. But I didn't make a bunch of scones, so I made different types of scones. I made sweet scones, and I made savory scones. One of the scones that I made that I loved so much, I made it many times since, are Gruyere and Prosciutto scones that were delicious. So I thought I would share that recipe on my channel today. Honestly, when I first started making scones from scratch, I was intimidated because I don't really bake from scratch that often. I make cupcakes. I've made some cakes from scratch, and cookies. But scones intimidated me a little bit. It felt like that was another level of baking skill that I wasn't sure I had. But I have made many different types of scones, and honestly, they all taste great. So they're not as difficult as you would think they would be. And so I've been making scones for a long time. Now, if you live alone or you don't have a lot of people in your house, you might think, well, I don't want to make a whole bunch of scones. What am I going to do with them? You can freeze them. And I'm probably going to freeze some of these that I'm going to make today because it's just me and Joe at home. So you can freeze them. You can wrap them in tin foil, put them in the freezer, and then you can pop them right from the freezer into an oven, preheated to like 350. And they bake for 15 minutes. And they should be warm all the way through, 15-20 minutes. So I'm probably going to freeze some of these. But these are nice to take to work. They're great with eggs in the morning. You can heat them up in the morning with, some scrambled eggs. And it is nice to have homemade baked goods in your freezer. So that's what we're going to make today is homemade prosciutto Gruyere cheese scones. And I went and bought the ingredients because I don't usually have scone ingredients, especially buttermilk. Because most scone recipes call for buttermilk, and I don't usually have buttermilk on hand. So I went out and I got the cheese and the buttermilk. And I'm probably going to figure out other things to do with the buttermilk before it expires because I hate to waste. So maybe in future videos I'll be making other baked goods. I'll look for things I can freeze. So let's go in the kitchen and I'll show you the ingredients I bought for the prosciutto scones. Chipper and Scout are going to join me. Scout's already made himself comfortable in my living room sofa. Chipper's just hanging out on my lap. Oh, he's going to lie down also. Yeah, you're going to lie down. Oh, you are a good boy. Yeah, you are. You're my boy. Boy. All right, boys, let's go in the kitchen. Come on. In the kitchen. Come on, in the kitchen. Come on. They go where I go. All right, well, I figure I can show you this cutting board that Joe made because it's not going to be staying in our kitchen for long. But as I've mentioned in earlier videos, Joe is working on starting a woodworking business as his retirement business. It's going to be up and running very soon, but he's been making cutting boards for friends and family as like practice. This is the board that he made for my sister. He's going to be giving this to her next month, so it's not going to be in our kitchen for very long. But it is a lighter color wood. And then, I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but these are two different types of wood here. So on the outside we have gray, and then there's a purple wood. I'll put on the video the name of the wood, but the middle of this stripe is a exotic purple wood. And my sister likes the color purple, and she has a lot of gray in her kitchen, so he incorporated the gray and the purple in with the board. And this board, it does have this special edge on the bottom. Let me show you. It's very heavy. But it does have the edge kind of comes down. I don't know if you can see that. And then he put feet on the bottom so that it is steady when you're cutting. It won't slip on your countertop. So it does have feet, which you can't really see. So I don't need to hide this anymore. It's been in a couple videos already, but I haven't brought any attention to it. I'm going to be giving this to my sister soon. My husband made it for her, so that's my sister's board, which came out really nice, really pretty. I'm going to pull out the ingredients for the scones, put them over here, and then I'll talk about what the ingredients are. Are you ready for me to show the ingredients, Chipper? You ready for that? You ready for me to show everybody the ingredients? You ready? Should I start? You ready for me to start? Okay, I pulled some ingredients out for these scones. You're going to need some baking powder, some sea salt, and I'm going to use some coarse kosher salt to sprinkle on top. You need a half a cup of butter. I'm going to use salted butter. You're going to need a little bit of Gruyere cheese, grated. You don't need a lot. So I just bought a small little block of Gruyere cheese, which kind of tastes a little bit like Swiss cheese. You're going to need some buttermilk. I bought light buttermilk. Some diced prosciutto. Some parmesan grated cheese. Some green onions. I'm also going to be using some flour, all-purpose flour, which I keep in my canister. Alright, so I have a bowl that I'm going to be mixing the ingredients in. I have a measuring cup I'm going to need, but this is something that I bought a few years back when I started making scones because I don't use a food processor. So you can buy this little tool in any store that sells kitchen gear. And this is a pastry cutter, and it has a little circle for your thumb, and you're going to be cutting the butter into the flour using this pastry cutter. It really, really works very quickly and very well. I love it. But if you don't want to use this or you don't have this, you could use a knife to cut in your butter into your flour, or put the flour and the butter in a food processor and cut in the butter into the flour that way. But I'm going to be using my pastry cutter. So I'll leave that in there for now. All right, so those are some of the ingredients. I'm also going to need a little bit of half and half to, after the scones are ready to be baked, you put a little bit of half and half on top of the scones with a little pastry brush. So I have a little bit of, like 2 tablespoons of half and half. I'm going to put the recipe for the scones in the description. So I also am going to need some parchment paper to bake the scones on. So that's pretty easy. I have parchment paper. these are the triangle scones after I roll them out. All right, this batch I have not put the half and half or the sea salt on yet. I'm waiting for the other scones to be frozen first. The trick to baking these scones is that you prepare them, you cut them into these triangles. Notice mine are not perfect. Some are a little bigger than others. That's okay. It'll all be fine in the end. Some of your smaller scones might be a little bit more burned, but they won't really be burned. They'll be fine. The scones have to go from cutting them into the freezer for about 20 to 30 minutes before you bake them in a 400-degree oven. So I don't have room in my, I have one of those drawer freezers, and they're not really great for freezing trays of baked goods. So I have to do one tray at a time. So I have my first tray in there. I have the timer on. I'm gonna put the oven on 400 in about 15 minutes. Preheat the oven, and then when the timer goes off, I'm gonna put the first batch of scones into the oven. They don't bake very long. Again, I'm gonna put the recipe in the description of this video for you. But while those scones are baking, I'm gonna put the other scones into the freezer, and then I will put the half and half and salt on them, stick them in the freezer, and then swap them out in the oven. Then I'm gonna let them totally cool, and then I'll pack them up for the freezer. I'll individually wrap them, and they will be a nice snack, a nice lunch, a nice accompaniment with my eggs in the morning, or something that Joe will have later on. But we will have homemade scones. And again, I've made this recipe many, many times. It's one of my favorite scone recipes. Joe is angry that I didn't make blueberry scones. I have made those too. I'll make those next time. And I probably will have to make another batch of scones. I don't know if they're gonna be blueberry or something else, because I bought so much buttermilk. I don't want to waste the buttermilk, so I might do some other baked goods to put in the freezer. So that may be in a coming video. We'll see what I come up with. All right, so we'll come back when the scones are done setting up in the freezer, and then I'll show you baking them. I just preheated the oven for 400 degrees, and I'm gonna get the next batch of I said stones. I'm gonna get the next batch of scones prepped for the freezer. All right, so I have a little bit of half and half. I'm just gonna lightly brush half and half on these scones. And I'm gonna put a little bit of sea salt, a little bit of coarse sea salt over the tops of them. All right, these are now ready for the freezer. In a few minutes, I'll be swapping out the ones that are in the freezer and put these in the freezer. And then I'll be baking the scones, and you're gonna see them popping out of the oven. Joe had bought a rotisserie chicken yesterday, which we have in the fridge. So I thought these scones would be a good side dish for the rotisserie chicken, and I'll make some kind of vegetable. So that's gonna be dinner tonight. It's not gonna be anything too fancy, except for my homemade scones, which are delicious. All right, in a few minutes, I'm gonna show you guys the scones going in my oven and the other scones going in the freezer. Notice that I have cleaned the kitchen. So I have cleaned up the kitchen. I have cleaned up everything. Put my sister's cutting board back where it's gonna stay for a little while. Everything is cleaned. I wiped off the counters. I put away, I'm soaking my bowl and some of the measuring cups and things that I used before I put them into the dishwasher. And I have put away all the ingredients. So everything's clean, hooray! All right, next time you see me, we'll be putting the scones in the oven. First batch of scones are in the oven, and they will bake for 20 minutes, and then I'll show you them when they pop out. The other batch of scones is in the freezer. All right, I'm ready. I'm ready to see all the scones. Delicious. I made myself a nice cup of coffee. It's early afternoon. Gonna have some nice scones in a minute. What a lovely weekend afternoon. Homemade scones, a nice fresh cup of coffee, sunny day. My pup is at my foot, waiting for anything to fall. There's nothing up here to fall though. And Scout is in the garage with Joe. Delicious cup of coffee. I'm glad you guys joined me today. If you're new to my channel, consider subscribing. I make a lot of videos on baking and cooking, but I also do a lot of decorating around my home. My home is in the Catskill Mountains of New York State. And sometimes I do videos about living in New York, in the Catskill area. So if you're interested in the Catskill area of New York, there are some videos about the Catskill Mountains. The scones are about to come out of the oven. I know, Chipper, but I got to get up in a minute, so you can't come on me. You can come on me after the scones come out of the oven. It's only going to be a minute. Let's ask Alexa how many minutes are left in the timer. Alexa, how many minutes are left on the timer?
You have 1 minute and 30 seconds left.
It's a 1 minute timer left. I already can smell the scones. They smell delicious. The whole house smells like baking scones right now. It smells really good. So I'm going to show you guys the scones. Let's go look at the scones coming out of the oven. I got to get my oven mitt. All right, let me get my oven mitt and we'll take the scones out of the oven because the timer is about to go off. And then we're going to pop the other scones in the oven, bake another 20 minutes. These look gorgeous. Look at that. Look at that. Beautiful. They're very hot, but they are golden brown. That's the bottom. Very perfect. Oh my goodness. These are unbelievably delicious. Look at that. Perfect. Wow, these are delicious. You're not going to believe how delicious these are. If you try these, you will agree. These are delicious scones. I'm going to be popping the other tray of scones into the oven. But let me just tell you, these look absolutely delicious. I know they are because I've made them before. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait to have a scone fresh out of the oven. So yummy. They're perfectly baked. And this is such an easy recipe. I literally threw it together in a half an hour. And it's a little messy because you have to knead the dough a little bit on your, on your countertop, but it's so worth it. And by the way, this kitchen smells heavenly. Oh my God, I love scones. I love them. So I hope that you're gonna try these scones. Even in the morning, if you want a cup of tea and a scone, what a delicious breakfast. All right, I'm gonna wait a few minutes before I put the other batch in the oven, and then I'll show you that. But before I show you that, thank you guys so much for joining me today on this Catskill early spring weekend, making delicious homemade scones to go with my cup of coffee, gearing up for a busy week in the Catskill Mountains. All right, I'm gonna put the other batch in the oven right now, and then they'll all be done in about 20 minutes. All right. I just want to show you again how beautiful these come out of the oven. It's cooled down a little bit so I can handle it now, but you can see how flaky these scones are. The prosciutto has fully cooked, and you can see how golden the bottom is, but you can really see the flaky layers. Delicious. I really want to try a bite of this. So delicious. It's light and flaky. It has the taste of the prosciutto and the cheese and the onion. And it is just delectable. Again, you really, you won't believe how delicious this scone is till you try it for yourself. Unbelievably delicious. All right, I'm gonna pop the second batch in the oven now. I've been sitting in the freezer for about a half an hour. We're gonna pop them in the oven for 20 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And they're gonna fully cool before I can freeze them. So I'm gonna freeze half of these. Look at this, how beautiful. I literally cannot express in the camera how beautiful these scones are. They are gorgeous. All right, I'm gonna finish my coffee and my scone. I don't even need the chicken. Just kidding. Actually, it's almost dinner time. I guess I'll start putting together dinner. So I guess I'll save my scone, the rest of the scone for dinner. All right, but before I leave, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you guys. If you do try this recipe, let me know in the comments. I promise you, you will love it if you try this recipe. And I'm probably gonna make another scone recipe. I'll do a sweet one, since this was a savory one. My next one, I'll do a sweet one, but I have all that buttermilk. You know what's really annoying? And I don't know if this is how it is where you are, but our local grocery stores don't sell small containers of buttermilk. You know, I can't buy a quart of buttermilk. I have to buy, you know, a half gallon. That wasn't really a half gallon, but I have to buy like the big container of buttermilk when I don't need that much buttermilk. So now I feel like, oh, I've invested in buttermilk, so now I don't want to waste it. And the date is like next week. So I'm gonna be baking some more this week, but that's okay. You know what? Whatever I bake, I'll freeze. Julius will be home soon from college, and you know that he'll be eating it all up. And Joe and I will eat it too. So that's the plan, but yeah, I'll be baking more. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you in my next video, maybe a scone video. We'll see. See you then.